Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of the beginner backpacking series. Today we are going to cover sleep systems. So we got a lot to go through here. We're going to jump right into it. What are these big fluffy things I've got inflated on my table? Well, these are sleeping pads. Just say it and let it roll off your tongue. No, but seriously though, sleeping pads. So I just got a couple out that I owned so that we could go over what they are, why you need them, and how to select them when you're shopping for your own gear. So this is not an equipment review. Again, I know I've said that a few times in other videos. I'm not doing equipment reviews in this series. We are talking about how to educate you on what you need to be looking for to fit your own needs as a backpacker as you start to get your own gear and start backpacking. So right here on top, this is a Nemo tensor. And I got some stats off of these pads just so we could share just a couple things about them. Some of the stats I have are not accurate because some of these pads aren't even made anymore because they're older. They've been replaced with newer versions, yada, yada, yada. But I will mention to you that some of the things that I go over are available, widely available on the used market, whether you're looking on eBay, you're looking on some kind of a gear trade, Facebook Marketplace. It's really easy to save a bunch of money, find some of this really great gear gently used to start out with. I highly suggest that. I need to say that more in these videos, but used gear is okay. You can find some really nice stuff. But this Nemo tensor, I have had, did I just say that funny? Tensor. I don't know. It's a funny name. I've had this pad now for a couple of years. I got it for my son. If you watch the tent video, one of those tents is my son's, and this is his sleeping pad. Now, really quickly, both these pads I have today are insulated. That means they have an insulation value inside the pad, which is kind of the same thing as the temperature rating on a sleeping bag. You know, it's going to give you an idea about how cold a weather this pad is going to keep you comfortable in. These two pads are basically 3-season pads. That means unless it's dead of winter, you're probably going to be all right. So the Nemo tensor, very common inflatable sleeping pad. Again, this is the insulated version. This pad comes with a pump sack. Now a pump sack on these pads. What is a pump sack? Let me grab it. It's this guy right here. And I just wrap it around the pad when I fold the pad up. The way this works, you're gonna like this. You just blow into it. And then you can wrap this thing up like a balloon and you can hear the air rushing out of it. This gives you a way to blow these pads up a heck of a lot faster. It's a very common thing that comes with these pads now. I highly suggest them. You can also buy some ultra light battery operated pumps for backpacking that will blow these up for you. I have never tried one of those because again, I am a hammock backpacker. So I don't actually have but one sleeping pad for myself. And to be honest with you, the one I have never used in the field. It's still in the package because I haven't tent camped in several years. So a couple of things about these pads that you need to know is that they all have an R value, okay? And the R value is going to represent the insulation value of the pad. That's an important number to look for. Now let me grab my phone real quick and I'm going to spout off a few things to you guys about the Nemo. The Nemo itself is a cool pad because it's a 3.5-inch pad, okay? And that's going to play into your decision-making process when it comes to these pads. Oh, where's my stats? Let me see here. Okay, so this is a 3.5-inch pad. Now, there's a couple of different variations of this pad out now, and they range from an R value of 3 all the way up to an R value of 5.4, which is a really warm pad. I think if you're doing 3-season backpacking, you're going to want to stay in that 3 to 5 range, you know, depending on, do you sleep cold? I get really hot when I sleep. That's going to all be a personal preference thing. If you're somebody who is really hot in a sleeping bag or in your quilt or whatever when you're sleeping, or in your bed at home, you have to have the house, you know, really cold when you sleep, then maybe you're not going to need as much R value as somebody who is typically cold when they sleep, and they get cold when they sleep. So this one, I think, this older version of this pad is like a 3.5 R value. It's plenty warm. We've been out in it. My son slept on it in pretty cold weather, down to probably about 35 degrees at night, and it is a pretty warm pad. The other kicker about this pad is it is 3.5 inches thick. That is important because I recommend not looking at anything that is less than 3 inches thick. If you are somebody that rolls around, sleeps on your side all night, anything like that, if you're above 200 pounds, I just don't think it's a good idea. A 2.5 inch thick pad will not work for me, because the second I roll over onto my side, and if I have that pad completely as inflated as far as it'll go, my hip will still touch the ground, because you are shallowing your body mass on the pad and you're putting all that weight on just your hip, and it's going to sink down and hit the ground. So 3 inches is what I like to see. The Tensor is 3.5, so it's perfect. This pad, I just threw it up on a scale, is a little over 1 pound 3 ounces. So it's a fairly light pad, not a bunch of weight consequence to this pad, with about a 3.5 R value, I believe, and I could be wrong on that, on this older version of the Tensor, which is this is a Tensor regular wide insulated, which is another important thing to notice. This pad, I'm going to cover my face up here, this pad is 25 inches wide. If you're a smaller person, you can get away with a 20-inch wide pad or a mummy pad, which you will see more commonly in some of the mummy-shaped pads are 20 inches wide. Some of them are 25 inches wide, and they will taper down at the foot section, and that's just to have a little bit of weight savings. Thermarest makes a lot of pads like that, and these pads that I'm going to show you are also available in the same configuration. I like the 25-inch wide pads. But you also have to consider a few things. Look at the dimensions on your pad. If you're going to be sharing a tent with somebody, again, you can refer back to the tent video in this series. You need to make sure that your tent floor will accommodate both pads that both people are bringing along, because you do not want to get in a situation where your pads are tuckered up in your tent because your tent floor was not wide enough to accommodate your sleeping pads. So that's something to consider when you're looking at all these things, that they do all really tie together, and you want to make sure that you are taking some of that into consideration when you're buying your gear for the first time. But these both pads that I have sitting here are 25 inches wide. I'm going to put this one down, and we're going to go over this other one here because it's got a few differences to it. This is the Etherlight XT from Sea to Summit. This is my pad. Actually, this is my girlfriend's pad. We have a couple of these. So this comes with the same thing. It's going to have a pump sack with it, just like what I blew up for you. This one's kind of nice because it's integrated into the bag. But again, this is an equipment review. This pad is a 4-inch thick pad. So I find these to be a little bit more comfortable for me. I'm 250 pounds, 6 foot tall, so I'm not a small guy. And these pads are really comfortable for me. This pad is 25 inches wide. It's a little bit over 6 foot long. It's perfect for me. It's why I bought one, in case I got into a situation where I wanted to tent camp, so that I had a pad that went along with me. Now this one has got a little bit different numbers on it than the Nemo does. I got this off REI's website, so this is right. This pad is actually a 3.2 R value, and like I said, it's 4 inches thick, 25 inches wide, so it's going to have a little more cushion to it. Still going to be plenty warm for me and most people all the way into the shoulder season, so most of fall, most of spring, and then of course summertime. And that's going to be really, if you're a tent camper, this is going to be the foundation of your sleep system. So I really suggest that you think about that when you're purchasing a pad, because if you buy a pad that is too thin, too short, too narrow, it's going to create a bad sleeping situation for you on trail. And you don't want to do that, because a bad night's sleep on trail is probably one of the most common things I hear from people that are new. I can't sleep on the trail. I can't sleep on the trail. Having a hard time getting. You should get a good night's sleep on the trail, and that is a very common nuisance for new backpackers. And there is going to be a learning curve to it. But if you were going to tent camp, you really need to think about your sleep pad in order to make sure that you're going to be comfortable and you get a good night's sleep. Because nobody wants to toss and turn all night, not sleep, and then get up and walk with a backpack on their back all day. That's going to make your trip a lot less enjoyable. With that being said, the reason I have these two pads out here is because, of course, there's going to be other options out there. You're going to see people with the little foam accordion pads. They're self-inflating pads. I don't think any of those hold really the quality standard or the comfort standard that this is going to hold. Those accordion foam pads, unless you're a person that can just sleep Go down on hard concrete and sleep, no problem. I just don't recommend those to anybody. Now, that's going to be a personal preference. If you want to experiment with some of those other pads, then by all means. But this is probably where you're going to land if you're going to want something that's going to last and be comfortable all the way through all three main backpacking seasons. So think about that when you're shopping for a pad. If you want to check these pads out, I'm going to get some links. Like I said, I think both of them actually have newer models. So I'm going to put a couple of links for these different pads in the description so you guys can go and kind of see some of the more in-depth stats about them and maybe look at some of the reviews. And these are not the only pads out there. The last thing I will say about sleeping pads is very simple. Please do not go cheap on this stuff and buy like Chinese knockoffs off Instagram. You're gonna see people that have success with those, and that's fine. But I've also seen tons of people take those types of pads out on multiple day backpacking trips and they fail, and then you have nothing to sleep on. And that's also something I really want to tell you to avoid. So you're better off saving your money, getting something like this that's been taken care of off of the used market rather than going to Amazon and buying some kind of a cheap Chinese knockoff, because you're giving yourself a much, much, much higher chance at failing if you go that route, and we want to avoid that. So I'm going to put this down. Next thing I want to talk about is pillows. I hate a lot of backpacking pillows. However, over looking through several different kinds of them over the years, I have found, and my kids have found, their favorite pillow, and that's these guys. These are the Thermarest compressible pillows, and as you can see, they're pretty good size, and if you have two of them, holy smokes, look at this. Like a baby. Oh, like a baby. Yeah. These pillows are really cool because they kind of like fold into themselves. So this one was kind of unfolded actually, but they have like a built-in pillowcase. They're super comfortable, but if you want to, you can compress them down. So I'll just compress one down real quick. And it's not that impressive. You know, you're not going to save a ton of room with these, but I will say that for what they are very, very light. And I'm willing to carry the extra volume in this pillow to sleep well. So it's kind of like the before and after there. They're going to compress down. But when they fluff up, they have a synthetic style insulation in them. It's not a down or a cotton or anything like that. They are really, really soft for what they are. And they're a little pricey. I'm going to put some links for these pillows in the description box too, so that you guys can see how much they cost. And there's like 3 different sizes. There's a small, medium, and I think these are larges that I have. I should have probably looked at that before filming. I think they're larges. Let me see. Well, we'll go with that. I think these are larges. There might be one bigger size than these, but this particular size, man, works really great for me. And this one with the mushrooms on it is actually mine that I sleep with in my hammock, and it is perfect for that. It has been a great pillow. It's warm in the wintertime. It's been great. Now, with that being said, it doesn't mean an inflatable pillow is not going to work for you. And there are tons of really good inflatable pillows out there. The other thing I will say about the inflatable pillows is the same thing I said about the sleeping pads. Please do not go cheap on that stuff, because if they fail on you in the field, then you end up with no pillow. And that's worse than not having a pillow in the first place. So really do your research on these things. There's some ultra light inflatable pillows I think are absolutely garbage, but there are some pillows that Sea to Summit makes, some inflatable pillows that actually have like a fabric topper on them. Sea to Summit makes them. I believe Nemo Tensor makes a few options. Or I'm sorry, Tensor is the name of the pad. Nemo. They make some options that are inflatable, but they still have like a fabric cover on them. Pillows are going to be a super, super, super personal thing, and you're going to want to almost like mimic what you sleep on at home. That's what I do. I'm a side sleeper. Even in my hammock, I kind of sleep on my side. So I need the pillow to like keep my head up so it's not cocked on my shoulder. So that's my whole thing with pillows. My kids really like these Thermarest pillows. They all have one. When it comes to backpacking pillows, I'm going to say it a third time. Please do not buy the cheap ones off Amazon. And the reason that is because these are filled with a synthetic material. It is not going to absorb water. It is not going to stink over time. There's lots of advantages to what is in these pillows. That's why they cost a little bit extra and why they are made with the fabric and materials they are made with, and they are made in the United States. The cheap ones, some of which are like a nylon backed with a flannel top that are full of cotton, the flannel's full of cotton, they're going to absorb water. They're going to create and keep bacteria. They're going to stink, and they're going to be completely useless in a very short amount of time. And it's very enticing, again, to go into those situations and say, it's a $12 backpacking pillow. It's not going to be something that you're going to enjoy. It is better off to try to find something like this, again, on the used market, or just pay the money up front and get these new. A lot of times you can get them on sale. I know like Dan Becker uses these. I know a lot of guys that use these pillows and are willing to carry the extra volume in their packs so they can have a nice, comfortable night's sleep. And that's what this is all about, is we want to get you comfortable out in the backcountry so that you will come visit again. All right, so the last part of this video, I have pulled out my hammock quilts. Okay, and it doesn't matter, well, it can matter width-wise, but generally it doesn't matter if we're talking about hammocks or we're talking about ground sleeping. A quilt is going to be a quilt. Now, what is a quilt? You ask me. So you can see that my quilt has a foot box, and this is where your feet are going to go. And then from there, it is open all the way to the top, very much like a blanket. Now, these quilts, I will recommend to you guys. I will put a link to these in the description box. These are made by a guy on Etsy, Hang Tight Quilts. I'll just hold that up in case you can see him. Hey, look, he's even got a QR code. I never noticed that. There's a QR code on the back there. I don't know if that's going to help you guys at all. But anyways, these are great quilts at a great price. And he makes them both for hammocks, so you can just get a top quilt like this, and it will come with a strap kit that will go around your pads so that this doesn't come off when you're sleeping. And that kind of helps eliminate the drafts and stuff that a quilt can have, because there's no bottom to the quilt. You're just sleeping on your pad, and this is more like a blanket that goes around you. These are really great for saving weight, and they work great for somebody like me because I move around a lot in my sleep, and typically I feel confined in a sleeping bag. So sleeping bags are usually something you'll only see me pull out if it is extremely cold and I'm sleeping in a tent. So virtually never. But these are, like I said, this is a quilt. You know, that's as you can see, there's not much to it. There's not zippers on it. If you'll watch me compress this down, if it goes into a compression sack, it is literally the size of that pillow, if not smaller. And these particular two that I got from Hang Tight Quilts, I have slept in all the way down into the mid-20s on the Appalachian Trail. I think this set was rated originally at 35 degrees. Obviously, it performs way better than its rating. But there and again, it's made here in the United States by a small shop. They're really high quality. They have not torn up on me. I'm going on, let's see here, fifth season of use out of these quilts. This is the only sleeping quilts I have used on the AT, and they have been phenomenal. You can wash them a little bit easier than a sleeping bag because there's not all these zippers and stuff all over them. So I wash these using like a Tide Free, or you can also get a down wash because these are down filled. Now, you're wondering what this other quilt is up here. This is the under quilt for my hammock. And as you can see, it is more like a flat blanket. And that's basically what it is. Now, on the ends of this, it's going to have a drawstring system. And that's so you can cinch this up around your head and foot area. And then it has this band, which has, I don't have them on there right now because I washed this, carabiners go around this, and this will clip to your suspension system. So when you're laying in the hammock, if you choose to go that route, this will hang underneath you and it will wrap around your entire body. So you will have a quilt on top and underneath. And I find that to be a lot warmer way than sleeping on the ground. And a lot of people say, well, doesn't the wind, get to you? And no, it does not. Not with these quilts and a quilt system that works. And these are, like I said, again, hang tight quilts, great value. He has sets that go all the way down to a 20-degree rating. And I would say based on the set that I have, they will probably go much lower than that. But I find it to be a warmer system overall in cold weather than sleeping on the ground. And yes, you're up in the air, but the ground naturally is going to pull heat from everything. So that's why you have to have a good insulated pad if you choose to tent sleep. In this situation, the only thing that's going to affect you is wind. And by the time I get my tarp pulled down around me at night and I have all of this insulation around me, this is the way that I would go if I was going to go backpacking in the middle of a snowstorm in the middle of the winter. I don't have to sleep on the ground. I don't have to worry about what's on the ground, and I'm completely wrapped in insulation. So I just think it's a warmer way to go all the way around. Yes, you do have to carry an extra quilt, but if you choose a high quality set or you get maybe a used high quality set from somebody, it's not going to be much different than taking a sleeping bag. All right, and the last thing we will talk about is sleeping bags. As you see, I have actually a very old but very nice North Face sleeping bag I have pulled out. That is mine. This is a fairly cold weather bag rated at 30 degrees. It's filled with down. The outer shell is nylon, all that good stuff. These bags can be bought in a whole range of prices. I have seen these old North Face backpacking bags on eBay, on Facebook, as low as $80. And this bag is probably a late 90s bag, if I remember correctly. So let's just say it's 28 years old, 27 years old, and it is still completely usable, completely in great shape, and is a great addition if you are going to be tent camping. Now, these are not going to be as light as a set of quilts. In fact, this North Face sleeping bag weighs a little bit more than my 2 quilts from Hang Tight. But the important thing to know about these when we're getting into sleeping bags, and as you guys are shopping for sleeping bags, is check the stats very carefully on what you're buying. I don't recommend anybody buys anything off-brand that is not a down sleeping bag. Now, there are companies out there. There are good companies out there like Aegis Max, like Enlightened Equipment. Now, that's going to be quilts that do an option for a synthetic insulation. I don't recommend that for the first time guys that are on a budget. It's better just to get a down bag. Yes, you're going to have to be more cautious with moisture with a down bag because that down will get wet easier than a synthetic bag will, and there are some ups and downs to both. However, on the used market, you're predominantly going to find down bags from companies like Kelty, North Face, Western Mountaineering, Nemo, Big Agnes, the list goes on and on. What is really important when you're trying to put your kit together, if you're going to buy a sleeping bag, is to pay attention to the ratings. Is the bag comfort rated or is it survival rated? And there's a big difference in there, and you want to really dive into that. If this bag is comfort rated at 30 degrees, that means at 30 degrees, I'm going to be warm and sleeping comfortably. If this bag is survival rated at 30 degrees, I'm probably not going to be comfortable, but they're saying I'm not going to die. There's a big difference in that. So look at the climate that you're going to backpack in, and that's going to dictate what kind of bag you're going to buy. And you can look up average temperatures online for an area, and that will give you a good idea of where you're going. If you're going to be backpacking in the Midwest or the East Coast or the West Coast, you need to decide what kind of bag do I need to get me through the majority of the seasons. I would say most people are going to do fairly well if they have a comfort rated bag at 30 or 20 degrees. 30 degrees if you're a hot sleeper, 20 degrees if you're a cold sleeper. That bag combined with a great sleeping pad is going to do 90% of the work for you. If you are backpacking in northern Michigan in December, that's probably not going to be adequate. But by now, you've probably already figured that out. So that's the only thing I'm going to put in here about sleeping bags. I don't really have a whole lot of them. My kids have their sleeping bags. This one actually gets used by my middle son. So 28 years old, still a great bag. It is still getting use on our weekend backpacking trip. So at the end of the day, the big conclusion here that you need to understand is that you don't have to buy this stuff new. It's more important to educate yourself on what it is that you're after. And if you find a product you think that's going to work and is going to meet all your needs, jump on Facebook Marketplace, jump on eBay, look and see if you can find that item in great shape at a used price. You can always save money buying used gear. I've got a ton of used gear that I've bought over the years. Some of it I've just happened upon accidentally. Some of it I went looking for. But that's a great way to build your kit with high quality gear instead of taking the cheap Chinese Instagram route, which normally will end up letting you down in the end. And like I just showed you, I have gear that's almost 30 years old, that's still working today, that's still great gear, that still performs well. If I can do it, you can do it too. I hope you guys enjoyed this coverage of sleep systems. I tried to really give you guys a roundabout idea of what you're looking for and how to build your sleep system, whether you're in a hammock or whether you're in a tent. And if you like these videos and you want to keep following along, I would love it if you guys subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment, put something in the comments if you want me to cover something even more. And we're going to keep doing these. So next time will be coming up soon, and I'll see you guys then.